Hello, everyone, history scholars. This is Miss Gooding, and I'm going to do a quick video lecture about World War I and specifically its causes. All right, World War I took place in between the years of 1914 and 1918. At this point in time, there were about 38 million casualties, and a casualty is either a death or a severe injury, and about 9 million deaths worldwide, specifically tied to the battles themselves. Before I get started on the causes of World War I want to go over just some really key facts for you. This was really the first global conflict, global war. It took place on many different continents. It was also called the Great War or the War to End All Wars. And so if you hear people refer to the World War I as either of those things, it's the same thing. Countries that were involved, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, those were the Central Powers, versus the Allied powers of Great Britain, the United States, France, Russia, Italy, and Japan. During World War I, because of the Industrial Revolution as well as advanced technology, there were a lot of modern aspects to this war. Specifically, the invention of the machine gun, tanks, planes, and also chemical weapons. This war was unprecedented with its death and destruction for not only the soldiers, but also civilians. This was also the time of the Spanish flu, and so there were a whole bunch of people that were infected. And supposedly over this time, there were in between 50 million and 75 million that probably perished because of the Spanish flu, which was made worse because of all of the traveling done by many of the soldiers. And like I said before, more than 9 million soldiers killed by the end of the war in November 1918. And do keep in mind that penicillin was not a thing yet. It was not really invented until later. And so a lot of the soldiers that were injured also sometimes and oftentimes died of their injuries because of infection. Here's a map of the globe, and you can see these, the red explosions are places that major battles took place, besides in Europe, where a lot of the battles took place in France and Germany, but these are the battles that happened outside. So definitely a global conflict. So now I want to talk about the causes of World War I. I want you to keep in mind that there's an acronym for the causes. So the acronym is MAIN, M-A-I-N, and the M stands for militarism, the A for alliances, I for imperialism, and N for nationalism. And I'm going to go into these in greater detail in subsequent slides. But militarism, you guys, is the development of armies and weapons. So there was a great global competition to create the best armies and the most advanced weapons at this time. Alliances also was another reason for World War I, that countries joined together and they wanted to protect their friends. Imperialism is another one, and imperialism basically means that one more powerful country takes over another country, and this was happening a lot. Not just with Germany, but also England, France, etc. And then finally, nationalism. And nationalism is a devotion to the interests and culture of one's own country over another country. And so combining those four things really led to the powder keg that was Europe right before World War I. Going into militarism a little bit more deeply. So Europe's major countries were really obsessed with building up their armies and navies to have better ones than the rivals. And so there was a lot of technology being developed during this time. There were a lot of warships being built. And countries felt like they needed to keep up with their neighbors. If you take a look at this chart, you see how Germany really increased above UK, because before World War I, England was really the major manufacturing production country of the world. And you see in 1870, they had 31.8% of the world's manufacturing production, whereas in 1913, it plummeted to 14%. On the other hand, Germany went up in between those dates, and the United States went from 23% in 1870 to 35%, almost 36% in 1913. So this competition was really a major player in one of the causes of World War I, just this competition between countries. Another cause was alliances. So we have the Allies versus the Central Powers. And in this map, you can see that the purple countries are allies, and the kind of darker yellow are the Central Powers. And the neutral countries are in that beige, the light beige color. And so all of these countries were basically helping each other out. Germany and Austria-Hungary, they decided to back one another. France and the UK, so the United Kingdom, they decided to remain friends. And what happened is eventually when World War I was started, all of these countries, just like dominoes, fell, and they had to enter the war simply because their friends were entering the war. Imperialism. So again, imperialism is one more powerful country taking over another country and really instilling their values upon those countries. And from this map, you can see that the British, the French, German, etc., they all had a lot of territory in Africa. And so there was this competition to really have more imperial reach than another country. And so this political cartoon is kind of a representation of what's going on during World War I or right before. And it's this long line of leaders that basically are saying, if you do this, I'm going to, well, if you do that to him, I'm going to. And so you see that it basically, like I said, it was like a bunch of dominoes that all fell at once because of these alliances and the competition that these countries were feeling against one another or toward one another. And lastly, nationalism. This is exceptionally important as well. So nationalism, again, is extreme pride in one's own country, nation, or people. And we do need to understand that imperialism has a play in nationalism as well. That oftentimes, if a nationalistic country that has a lot of pride in themselves and their people and their ethnicity, they then imperially take over another country, they're going to also showcase their nationalism and pride in, let's say, England in Africa, right? So we have the Austro-Hungarian Empire that made up of much of Southeast Europe and was made up of different nationalities. So let me break this down a little bit more for you. So here is a very close-up map of part of Europe. And here we have Germany, we have Italy down here, France is all the way over on the side, Russia is right here, but you have this conglomeration of countries. And these countries were the Balkan states. So these were the Czechs, the Serbs, the Bosnians, the Poles. They all wanted self-determination, they wanted some independence, but they had these really powerful countries surrounding them. And imperialism kind of impacted these smaller, less powerful countries. And they were not happy, okay? So really, really quickly, I want to point out here's Serbia, okay? And then up here, we have Germany, we have the Czechs, we have, and then we also have Austria-Hungary, okay? That is going to be huge in what happens next. All right, so we have, now you know a little bit more about militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism, and you also know that the Balkan states, those countries that were less powerful, are not very happy at the power of the countries that surround them. So here's the spark. All right, so the Austrian prince, Franz Ferdinand, he went to Sarajevo, which, I'm going to go back to this map, is in Serbia, okay? And so he went in an open car. Look at that picture. It was probably, I think it was a parade of some sort, maybe it was a funeral, but he was in Sarajevo, and in broad daylight, he was shot by a person that was a extreme nationalist from Bosnia, from Sarajevo. And because the people in Sarajevo were so angry at being held back by the Austro-Hungarians, that they rebelled. They were angry, and so he was shot and killed. So this assassination triggered a web of alliances that led to all of Europe being dragged into the conflict. So, starting on August 1st, 1914, Germany, an ally of Austria-Hungary, declared war against Russia, Serbia's ally, and then against France and Germany, Russia's allies. So you can see that all of these friends, these countries that were friends, started to declare war on each other simply because they're friends. They wanted to protect their friendships from country to country. On August 3rd, 1914, Germany invaded Belgium, an ally of France. So the Allies could not stop Germany in Belgium, but they stopped them in France. Okay, so what you have here are a whole bunch of countries really close to one another trying to prevent one another from gaining any territory. And so then you have something called trench warfare. And with trench warfare, it's when both sides dig in. They literally dig into the earth so that they can protect their territory. And here are some pictures of the trenches. So you can see that they're a network of paths that are dug underground. There are some main paths where actually people are ready to go up and shoot or whatever they are going to do. And then there are also channels of paths that connect these major basically trenches. You can see in this picture here that there are people with the gas masks to protect them from the chemical weapons. But anyway, trench warfare is a type of fighting where both sides stayed in deep trenches to avoid the gunfire. And trench warfare was used on the Western Front, and the Western Front is the line between France and Germany that rarely moved. And we'll get more into that when we talk about the Battle of Somme. But these trenches were protected by barbed wire and concrete machine gun nests. And here are some more pictures of the trenches and some of the planes and some of the new inventions like the tank and the machine gun and these warships. So hopefully you learned a little bit about the causes of World War I and some of the issues that came with it. And thanks for listening, you guys.